The Chicago Bears will start Caleb Williams and all of their healthy players in Week 18 against the Green Bay Packers. But I sure would be tempted to sit down my rookie quarterback for a meaningless game when he's taking so many sacks and so many hits this season with nothing left to play for.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, we look at the Bears' decision to play Caleb Williams and the starters against the Green Bay Packers and why there's an argument to be made in the opposite direction there, sitting them down and saying, hey, it's just not worth it for one more game this season. You're healthy, you're safe, you're clean. Let's keep it that way to go into the offseason on the right foot. But we'll also look at some of the challenges that would come with a decision like that. And okay, if Caleb is indeed going to play, as the Bears say he will, what can they do to try and keep him as safe as possible while still having him out on the field? But it was a topic of conversation that Thomas Brown, the Bears' interim head coach, shut down pretty quickly on Monday when he said, yes, Caleb Williams is playing against the Packers. All of our healthy starters, whoever's available to play health-wise, will play against Green Bay. The Bears are not sitting guys down. They're not intentionally phoning it in. They're not waving the white flag and saying, screw it, why bother? They're still going to come out and try and play hard against the Green Bay Packers. And it always leaves you with a little bit of fear in your head of like, okay, well, what if Caleb Williams suffers an injury in Week 18 against the Packers, and all of a sudden you look and say, well, why was he even out there? What real value were they getting from having him in the game? Because this is a quarterback, like, it's a little bit different with Caleb Williams than other teams' quarterbacks in Week 18, right? Or even previous Bears quarterbacks in Week 18, because this isn't just any quarterback. It is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Like, part of this is not just about Caleb Williams, but it's about your offensive line. And depending on how healthy that group is, last week you were kind of operating with, 4 backups in the game against the Seattle Seahawks, with left tackle being Larry Borom, left guard being Jake Curhan, and then Coleman Shelton was always kind of your second choice center, and Matt Pryor was never supposed to be your starting right guard either. So Darnell Wright's really your only true starter on the offensive line in that game, and depending on how healthy that group is, Caleb could be behind a bunch of backup offensive linemen again against the Green Bay Packers pass rush that's certainly going to want to get after him and try and set that NFL all-time sack record. But for me, it's not just the sacks, right? It's the cumulative number of hits that Caleb Williams has taken this season. Like when you look at his 67 sacks, plus he's been hit, like a quarterback hit, after the throw, 36 times. It's times, and when I say hit, it's specifically plays where he's been knocked down to the ground. Those are how they measure these hits. Not just brushed by a pass rusher after you let go of the ball, but actually knocked down all the way to the ground after the throw, legally, without a flag being thrown, 36 more times. So that's 103 sacks and QB hits he's taken in the 17 games, or 16 games so far this season. Those add up. And those wear you down. And even Caleb has admitted that. He was asked at one of the post games, the last couple games, do you feel like these sacks, or do you see all these hits sort of compound a little bit and start feeling worse? And it's like, yeah, it takes him a little longer to recover from them now because he's been hit and battered and bruised so many times over the course of this season. And particularly, I think the sacks hurt a little bit more than the hits, because the hits can be a light shove, everything from a light shove to an actual like slamming down into the ground. But then you can add on top of that, okay, 67 sacks, 36 hits, but also the plays when he's tackled as a runner. Now some of the plays when he runs, he steps out of bounds or slides and he doesn't actually receive a tackle. So we don't have an exact stat on how many times he's physically been tackled, but he's rushed the ball 78 times. And so we don't know what the proportion here. I mean, could we guess 50 of those times has he been physically tackled as a runner? Is that too high? I mean, I'm spitballing here. It's not super important what that number is, but you add on another, at least a few dozen hits as a runner on top of hits as a passer and sacks as a passer that show you just how much Caleb Williams has been beaten around this season. And I'm not confident that all of a sudden this last week of the season against the Packers is going to be the week where the pass protection figures it all out and where, oh yeah, he has a totally clean game from the pocket and can just be the regular quarterback. Like, all of these issues have been ongoing all season. So why subject him to more of that? Especially when you have a quarterback behind him like Tyson Bagent that you feel like still gives you a chance to win the game. Sure, Tyson Bagent is not as good as Caleb Williams. And, there was a plenty of fake QB controversy this season where reports about whether it was Bagent's dad or whoever wanting Bagent to maybe play some snaps in place of Caleb Williams this season. But like, we've seen Bagent go out in his career and win games for the Chicago Bears, 2-2 last season as their starter, and generally, is a quality backup. And I think there's a real value here to not only giving Tyson Bagent some more live regular season in-game experience when it's not like he's being thrown in there cold off the bench, having him a chance to sort of prepare and be ready to go and can kind of continue his development, and also perhaps showcase another game of his talents to the rest of the NFL, in case there's some real trade value down the line there. And I also think there's some value to Caleb Williams having an opportunity to watch another quarterback operate this starting offense with the starters out there, right? Yeah, he gets to watch in the preseason backup quarterbacks play with backups against backups, but it's a little bit different when it's like you played the Green Bay Packers earlier this year in this offense with these starters against this defense. And when you can watch a different quarterback who maybe do things a little bit of a different way. And that doesn't mean one quarterback does it the quote unquote right way and one quarterback does it the quote unquote wrong way, but it's just like two different approaches to the same problem or the same play. And like, you can sort of see from the sideline how Tyson did that differently, and maybe he can apply some of that to his game. Or maybe there's things Tyson Bagent might do wrong that Caleb can go, maybe I should know not to do that in the future. Like, I'm not saying it's like it's exactly what he needs and it's going to fix anything for Caleb Williams, but I think there's a real value to being able to take a step back and see it from afar and be a part of the whole operation without being on the field, and maybe just see it a little bit differently at this stage of the game and at this stage of the process, having gone through it all season. And most importantly, though, just keeping Caleb Williams safe and saying it's not worth it. The Bears have nothing to play for in this game. The Packers are playing for a tiebreaker against the Washington Commanders, but it's not going to be a super high stakes game for them either. Like, the Bears are already 4-12. What's the difference between 5-12 and 4-13? If anything, maybe it helps you get an even better draft pick, but that's never going to be your public answer. Your public answer is, hey, we need to protect this quarterback and we want to see what Tyson can do in the offense right now. It's part of the evaluation process there. One more game of Tyson Bagent to say, hey, do the Bears need to upgrade their backup quarterback this offseason? Or are they good to just keep rolling with Tyson Bagent here? So that's why I think there's some real merit to the idea of sitting Caleb Williams. The problem is, functionally, there's really no way to actually do it, right? This is an idea that works really, really well in Madden, like in video game football logic. It makes a lot of sense to just, if you could just wave a magic wand, take your starting quarterback out, and put your backup in for one game with no other consequences, that might be something smart for the Bears to do. In real life, it's not. In real life, it creates too many different problems and headaches that are not worth it for the Bears, and we'll kind of go through why functionally it just doesn't make sense and why players still have more to play for than even what the team collectively may have next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money has helped me find subscriptions I forgot about that you end up realize you were paying for the whole time. I mean, Rocket Money makes it super easy to track them all down, like having a little personal assistant for your finances. I've been using the Rocket Money app since before they came on with us here at the Locked On Podcast Network, and I really love it. It's like a personal finance app. It monitors your spending and can help you lower your bills as well to grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Your spending habits, your financial goals, those subscriptions. That's why they have over 5 million users, and they've helped save users a total of $500 million. I love it. It flags large transactions as well to make sure, like, hey, did you mean to spend all this money there? And you kind of shake your head and say, yeah, I did. But at least it lets you know so that it's not a fraudulent purchase that comes on that you want to get on top of right away. You connect your accounts, it's all in one place, and it's super helpful. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. Even if Ryan Poles or Thomas Brown or whoever wanted to sit Caleb Williams this week, the obstacles functionally with the team just don't quite work in real life, right? In Madden and in the video games, right, there aren't really emotions, right? The players are just numbers on a depth chart that you can move up and down. And I guess in some of the modes, I guess players can get upset or whatever with their contract situation. But generally speaking, you bench a player and you can put him right back in or whatever, and there's no consequences for making a lot of those changes. In real life, there are. In real life, you have 53 other players on this roster who are fighting for their jobs, fighting for their paychecks, fighting for their next contract. And if you, I guess I should say, publicly declare, we're going to sit Caleb Williams this week, we don't want to risk him getting injured, this game just isn't important enough for us to play this quarterback, that sends a message to every other player on your roster and says, hey, this game's not that important. So if I'm any of those individual players, then why should I play? Or if I play, why should I play hard? Why should I care? Why should I even go out there and suit up? Why should I put my body on the line and risk potential injury if you're not willing to do that with our starting quarterback, the player who has the most of any individual player or position, the most control over whether you win or lose, right? It sends a message across the roster that says, hey, we are waving the white flag and we're not even going to pretend like we're trying to win this game. We're just going to go there and lose. I mean, you can try and pretend like Tyson Bagent can win you the game, and maybe he can, maybe he can't, but what you're saying is that we're not going to do everything we can to win, right? We're not giving it our best shot. We're not using the quarterback that gives us the best chance to win the game. Winning is secondary to us at this point. You still want to win the game, but you're not doing everything you can to win the game. So why should any other individual player do anything they can to win the game? It's kind of not fair to them, because it's easy to forget a lot of players have different incentives in their contracts as well that they're still playing for in week 18. And I don't know a lot of the intimate details of individual Chicago Bears players' contract, but you think about sometimes wide receivers will have an incentive where if you get a certain number of catches or a certain number of yards or a certain number of touchdowns over the course of the season, you're going to get a bonus $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever it might be. Or, it might be a pass rusher. I wouldn't imagine Montez Sweat's contract has a sack threshold in there, but like, hey, if you get to 7 sacks in a season, you get $10,000. And if you get to 10 sacks, you get $50,000, right? Each of those sort of individual milestones some contracts can have those written in. Again, I don't know of specific ones on the Bears, but a lot of positions can have a lot of little ones written in there that we all don't realize. And so if I'm say, let's make it DJ Moore, for example, or Keenan Allen, I need 100 yards to hit my next milestone to make an extra $50,000 this season, and my team puts in a backup quarterback. I mean, even if I have a lot of faith in Tyson Bagent, it still feels like, man, their decision at the quarterback spot there is keeping me from getting my money and maximizing my value on my contract. Or even guys like Keenan Allen, who is going to be a free agent coming up, Tevin Jenkins going to be a free agent coming up, like all these guys who are set to hit the open market again. This is one more game to show the Bears and show the rest of the NFL what their value is and how good they are and why they should be a player that you want to add to your football team next year. It's not even always the big players either, but like the defensive linemen like Chris Williams or Jacob Martin or Byron Cowart, like some of these more fringe guys. Like, okay, one game of Keenan Allen probably isn't going to make or break anybody's evaluation. But if one of these rotational backup guys like Chris Williams is just an easy name to come back to, if he has another big game with another sack, like boom, he finished the season with a couple of sacks in back-to-back games and looked really strong against, I guess he ended up with a hit. It was a sack against the Vikings, but he's still been turning it on a bit down the stretch here Or Darrell Taylor, same conversation. He had the sack last week against the Seahawks. If he can have another big sack, another strip sack of Jordan Love or whatever, and have back-to-back games with strip sacks on opposing quarterbacks, like that can skyrocket his own individual value this offseason so that he can get a bigger contract. But, if his team is sitting Caleb Williams and sitting some of your other starters, and so then, players aren't playing as hard, you don't have as much talent on the field, it's harder to then do your job at a high level and harder to put as good of film out there for the rest of the league to see, and you end up hurting those individual players' respective value. So that's another really messy part of the functionality here of just like players individually. Maybe the team doesn't have a lot to play for, but individual players do. And they have personal pride too, and they wouldn't be happy, and it just doesn't send a very good message to the team that we're just going to very publicly and deliberately give up. Then you can sprinkle in a little bit of the QB controversy stuff. Like, I don't think sitting Caleb for the final game and having Tyson play is necessarily going to unravel the locker room and create a split between who thinks which quarterback should be the starter. But why even bother giving anybody any fuel there, right? If there's already even super weak speculation mumblings that some players maybe earlier this season or something may have wanted Tyson Bagent or whatever, which I still don't put a lot of stock in. If you put Bagent in week 18 and he plays really well, I mean, does that add even just the tiniest little bit of fuel to a fire that might not be very big anyway? But like, is it really worth the hassle there, the headache of creating any sort of room for anybody to have any kind of doubts, right? Like, not that it would. Like, functionally, you're going to hire a new coach. They're going to set the tone. They're supposed to fix the culture. Caleb's our guy. Like, in theory, it shouldn't have any effect if you started Tyson Bagent for one game by choice, because it's clearly not a benching of Caleb for play purposes. It's just for health and safety purposes. But man, don't even give him, it's almost like don't feed the trolls, like, right? Don't even give him the chance to have anything to say about it. Don't give him the chance to have any sort of counter thoughts there. Like, just let Caleb Williams play. And you can make the argument that every single game is still valuable for Caleb too. He still has timing. He's trying to get on the same page with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, et cetera. Like, he's still working through routes and play concepts and working on the pocket presence and trying not to take so many sacks. Like, there are different things. He just needs more experience at the NFL level to keep getting better at. And yeah, one game out of 17 doesn't, change everything for him, but it adds up. It's another, 60, 70 snaps of football so that, by next year he's done everything 500 times instead of 400 times or 450 times. It just puts him that much farther ahead to be able to have a little bit more experience. The important thing is that, okay, you're going to play Caleb Williams, you're going to play the starters, you're going to show everybody that you're trying to win. But I think within that, you can be a little bit more sneaky as Thomas Brown, as the interim head coach and play caller. You can be sneaky about, okay, we're playing our starters, we're trying to win, but maybe behind the scenes, just in his head, maybe we should do some things a little bit differently to focus more on protecting the quarterback, to try and say, like, I want all the players to believe we're trying to win, but I'm going to call plays a little bit differently so that the priority number one is protecting Caleb Williams, and the priority number two is trying to win. And hopefully in doing the things to try and protect him, you also are able to win. But you don't have anyone, you won't leave anyone doubting whether you are still trying to win, even if you do some things a little bit more, I'll say conservatively for the quarterback. Not always conservatively for the offense, but definitely conservatively for the quarterback to protect him and also still try and win some games around that. So we'll look at some of the things that Thomas Brown can do as a play caller here to still try and win the game, but keep his quarterback just a little bit more safe. That's next on Locked On Bears. You have to make your players believe you're trying to win the game. But even within that, your play calling can vary along a spectrum of, sort of risky / aggressive to safe and conservative. And you can still argue that the more safe and conservative calls are still a part of trying to win the game and not intentionally phoning it in, but understanding that especially in a Week 18 game that's meaningless, you can have multiple priorities here. Of course, one priority, winning the game. That is still something the Bears are going to try and do and do everything in their power to get there, to that point. But maybe not everything in their power. Maybe just most of what's in their power by scaling things back for the quarterback a little bit here and just saying, hey, we want you to play. We want you to keep getting the experience, but we don't want you to get sacked. We don't want you to take so many hits. Let's change our approach a little bit here. You don't have to tell them that you're doing it, but you would just, as the play caller, do it functionally in the plays you're calling by calling a different sort of style of plays and sets of plays and orders of plays. Players will just think you're calling regular plays, but really you've got a backup idea in your head here of like, yeah, we also want these plays to help keep our quarterback safe. So like something obvious, right? You can just run the ball more. That's something that if you're running the ball a lot, is that telling your team, hey, we're not trying to win? No, we're trying to run the ball. We're trying to establish the run. We're trying to be a more physical team. And like, even if the running game is struggling a little bit to get rolling, you can at least say, hey, we are establishing the run. Because every play that Caleb turns and hands it off is a play that he's not getting hit by a pass rusher, that there's not pressure bearing down him, that you're not relying on your offensive line to keep your quarterback safe. You're relying on your offensive line to keep your running back safe, but like that's a little bit less important to the long-term success of your team than keeping your quarterback safe. So the Bears have done a mediocre job establishing the run. Some games it seems like Thomas Brown, too many TBs. Some games it seems like Thomas Brown has done a good job sticking to the running game early. And some games they get behind on the scoreboard a little bit and kind of abandon it and then come back to it in the second half. But like I want early and often handoffs to DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson if they're both healthy and ready to go. Focus on being a running first team in this game. You're going to have to pass the ball sometimes though. Like there's going to be plays and moments where you have to, expose Caleb Williams to the potential of danger of Packers pass rushers and blitzers coming after him. So like certainly you need to be ready for them to blitz. Every defense has been blitzing the Bears a bunch the last 3 months. They've all seen that that's a really good strategy, that this team can't consistently pick up the blitz and beat the blitz. So I expect the Packers to bring a decent amount of blitzing, and you have to be ready for that as just like a baseline level. Either way, whether you're really focused on protecting Caleb or just playing your normal game plan, either way, you need to have a lot of different blitz options available to you. But I think even more specifically in that, like if I'm Thomas Brown and I want to protect Caleb Williams, I'm calling a lot of quicker passing concepts. 3-step drop, slant route, 3-step drop, curl route, 3-step drop, drag route over the middle of the field, a little high-low drive route over the middle, like little things where he doesn't have to go through a full progression. It's like 2 receivers and you just throw it to one of them. One of them's got to be open. And if not, throw it away, scramble or find a check down. Because I want to see a lot of check downs. That's another one of the big things here. Just tell Caleb Williams, listen, man, count to 3, throw the check down. I don't care if the pocket is even still clean at that point. Just throw the check down. If you go your drop back, you step up, 1 receiver, 2 receiver, check down. Just go get to the check down earlier than you think you need to. The offensive line could give them the perfect pass protection game in the world. Throw the check down. Get rid of the ball. Throw it away. Take an intentional grounding from the pocket. I really don't care. Just get rid of the ball and don't let the other team's pass rushers hit you. Like functionally, I still think you can, it doesn't have to just be the dink and dunk offense the whole way through. Like you can be smart about trying to roll Caleb Williams out of the pocket. And I know there's danger if you do like the naked bootleg, right? And a unblocked defender can come down from line of scrimmage and light up your quarterback. Then you got to be smart about it. You can leave in an extra blocker on that side, or you can do a rollout that's not play action. It's just like a speed out, even from the shotgun, right? Where you snap it and immediately run right. So you're not even play action faking and actually rolling. You're just moving the pocket, because moving the pocket delays the amount of time it takes for pass rushers to get to your quarterback. It increases the distance from the pass rusher to the quarterback so that he can then get out of the pocket. And then once you're over there, you can take your shot downfield. You can open up the offense a little bit more, or you can check it down still, or you can throw it away, or you can scramble and slide. Like you can have a multi-dimensional offense here. It doesn't have to be run the ball in slant routes, dink and dunk and run the ball, and you're only getting 3 yards at a time. Like you can do more. You just have to be smart about it, and you have to put the quarterback safety in priority first. Running back screens, jet sweeps, end arounds. Trick plays. It's week 18. Thomas Brown, you're not coming back. You got a halfback pass in there, a wide receiver pass in there. Like, is there something you can do where it's like, hey, it generates explosive offense and doesn't put Caleb Williams at risk of taking a big hit or being injured in this game? Of course, there's no there's no perfect injury mitigation, and there's always going to be times when a player can get hurt, even from a non-contact injury. Like, you can't perfectly protect a player other than sitting him down and putting him on the bench, like we talked about. But that's not really a functional possibility either. So then can you just try and minimize the risk as much as possible by getting it out of his hands quickly, by letting other receivers be the playmakers there, by moving the pocket, by adding extra blockers in there, just having Caleb Williams intentionally speed it up. Like, go too fast. That's what I would tell Caleb Williams. Listen, like, whatever feels like too fast, do that. You know, because maybe then if it's a play that you would normally do too slow and you tell him to do it too fast, that averages out at about the normal speed sometimes. And sometimes it might just be too fast in general, and that's great. Do it too fast. Fast, and it's weird, fast and safe, I was going to say. It's a weird combo there. You think slower would be safer, but not in this case, because you want the quarterback to get rid of the ball. Like, I want to make Caleb Williams into like Tua Tagovailoa in this game. Not because of the injury stuff, but because of the Miami Dolphins offense. Tua has the fastest release in the NFL in terms of what the offense asks him to do. His average time to throw is like 2 seconds, 2.1 seconds. It's super quick. Snap, turn, throw, snap, turn, throw, snap, step up, throw deep. Like, they'll still do deep shots. You can do this functionally on offense, get rid of the ball that much more quickly. And I don't care if it holds you back from being able to win this game, because I don't think you're going to win this game even if you don't try and protect the quarterback specially. If you just try and do your normal offense, are you going to win this game? Well, you scored 3 points on the Seattle Seahawks last week, and the Lions doubled you up. The Vikings more than doubled you up. The Bears haven't played a team close since Thanksgiving when they fired Matt Eberflus. Well, haven't played a good game. They played the Seahawks close, but a little bit of a different story there. They haven't scored more than 17 points since Thanksgiving. Like, that's them trying the regular offense. So why not go conservative, protect your quarterback offense to keep him safe and hope your defense can have another great game? I mean, again, I don't think you're going to win either way. So play the quarterback, have everyone functionally feel like you're trying to win, but then keep things safe for him, protect your quarterback, and go into 2024 with a total reset and not have to go into 2025, and not have to go into 2025 with an injured quarterback. That's ultimately the biggest fear in a game like this. And the Bears are saying, all right, we're going for it. So we'll see what they have in store this weekend. We got a lot still in store for you this week on the Locked On Bears podcast. Just because the season is winding down doesn't mean we're slowing down. We're still going to have crossover Thursday this week and get the scoop on what's at stake for the Packers. And the team kind of fluctuates between good and less good. So we'll kind of find out what version we should expect to see on Sunday. Certainly we'll break the game down for you on Monday morning on Sunday. And then we'll get into coaching search stuff. The Bears can start interviewing candidates. When the regular season is over, you can start actually interviewing Mike Vrabel now. His contract just expired midweek, so we'll see if that ends up happening soon, or if Ryan Poles' job is indeed safe. A lot of storylines still to follow, even with a lost end of a bad, ugly Bears season. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, be sure to check out the Locked On NFL podcast. We cover the NFL from a total league-wide perspective. It comes out twice a day, once in the morning with Tyler Rowland, and then in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. I'm co-hosting this morning's podcast with Tyler. We talked about this Lions 49ers Monday night football game and some of the other big storylines around the NFL right now. So go check that out wherever you get your podcasts. Coming back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity for you to bear down.